I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Cannon. As lifelong Disney fans, the work of countless talented Disney creatives have shaped our lives.
Now, as the Disney catalog expands, we're taking a journey through film and television to discover if that spark that shaped us as children lives on in adulthood.
Does your favorite Disney media still cast that same spell? Join us as we find out. We are Rewatching the Magic.
Hi, Kiki.
Hi, Tuesday.
The golden age of Disney, where Walt really took the concept of taking animated cartoons from these shorts in the theater to full-blown feature-length movies. And we've done most of them. We've done the original Snow White, we've done Pinocchio, we've done Dumbo. And it's time to put the bow on that era with the last movie of that era, Bambi, from 1942. And as we've said previously, we've tried to do Fantasia as an audio-only podcast. That did not go well. That's why we haven't released it.
Yeah, there's just no real way to talk about it in an audio-only format. It just doesn't work.
So with Bambi here, we are putting the bow on the golden era, the pre-World War II era of Disney. And Bambi is just an interesting movie, not only in the movie itself, but in popular culture. There is what is considered the Bambi effect. And the Bambi effect, for those of you who don't know, has this thing of protecting cute and cuddly and attractive-looking animals, and, not so much caring about the not-so-cuddly animals. Like, someone might care about a little deer or a little bunny, but not so much a great white shark. And there's also the influence on media as a whole, as we have Bambi to thank for anime, because it was Japanese artists who saw Bambi when it came out and was inspired by the large eyes of Bambi to use them in their artwork to have their characters look more cute. So, yeah, you have Bambi to thank for anime eyes.
Yeah, you also have Bambi to thank for traumatizing several generations of children, starting with maybe your parents or grandparents, depending on your age.
Yeah, one of the most hated villains in Disney history, and we never see this villain at all in the movie. And that would be the hunter that killed Bambi's mom. And that is just, you're a kid, you're watching this movie, and oh, it's so beautiful. Here's Bambi and his mother going through nature, going through the various seasons. Oh, here comes spring. And then man is here. It is one of the most well-known twists in a Disney movie, is Bambi's mother getting shot by the hunter. And, before there was Simba crying over Mufasa, we had Bambi crying over his mother. And we didn't even see it in this movie. Can you imagine if they had allowed for Bambi to go up to his dead mother's body and try to wake her up, a la Simba and Mufasa?
It's very strange that we talk about, like, oh, snowflake this and snowflake that these days. But, when we were kids, we got to see, Dad, and all that kind of stuff, with Simba trying to wake up Mufasa. And in this one, you just hear a gunshot, and then all of a sudden, like, Bambi's dad just shows up in the snow, and he's like, "You'll never see your mother again." And that's it. Like,
Very stern, very cold, and that's it. That's the last we see or hear about Bambi's mother throughout the entire movie. Is you can't see your mother ever again. Come on, son, we're going to a sequel in 60 years.
Yeah. But speaking of that scene, because let's go ahead and rip that Band-Aid off. I dare you to name a bigger tonal whiplash in the history of Disney. I dare you. Listener, write in and tell me, because I demand to be corrected if you can find it, than like gunshot, Bambi crying for his mom, dad showing up in the snow to be like, you're never seeing your mother again. Smash cut immediately to like, it's spring and we're all Twitter pated, la 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 la. Like, there is absolutely no moment for you to catch your breath in the middle of those things. Like, as a child, even as an adult, if you were to see this for the first time, there is not a millisecond for you to like blink and figure out what is going on between those transitions. It's just gunshot, mommy, your mom's dead, kid. It's spring and everybody wants to do the thing you do in spring when you're an animal, you know?
Though I will say the entire Twitter-pated scene, especially with Friend Owl's explanation of it, is probably the most family-friendly way of explaining it without getting too graphic about it.
It's also really funny because, okay, yes, we generally think about animals and nature, and spring is the time for mating. Okay? Except this is a movie about a white-tailed deer. Would you like to know what time of the year deer mate?
Go ahead and tell us.
It is not the spring. It is the fall. They give birth in the spring. That's when you find little fawns running around. Well, actually not even then, because it takes a couple of months for them to, kind of be able to follow mom around. But, spring is the birthing season for deer. Spring is not the Twitter pating season for deer. Fall is the Twitter pating season for deer. So, yeah, while rabbits and stuff would definitely be, Thumper would be getting Twitter pated in spring, and Bambi would be like, I really don't, what? No. And then come fall, Bambi and Feline would be like, hey, let's get Twitter pated. This seems like the time for that. That's kind of what the movie gets wrong.
But it's a Disney movie, and you gotta...
It's a Disney movie, and they were trying to, make it easy for kids to understand. But it is kind of the funny thing of, like, this is a movie primarily about a deer, and that's the thing that they got wrong.
So yeah, and like a lot of the Disney movies of yore, this also was based off a book, Bambi, A Life in the Woods, a 1923 Austrian novel by Felix Salten. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
This was a movie that I was shocked was based on a book, because one of the reasons why it took us so long to do this movie was because I couldn't remember if I liked this movie or not, because I couldn't remember what this movie was about. And then watching this movie, I was like, oh yes, this is about nothing. This is one of those movies that has no plot.
This is that, and we've talked about this before, how this was an era where Disney was used to making shorts. So these really felt more like 12-minute shorts kind of stitched together as a feature film. They all feature the same characters. Because you go through the various seasons, it's like each season it's its own short. Like you have Bambi being born in the spring, and then it goes into summer, and it goes into fall, then it goes into winter, then it goes into spring again. Skip jump a year, it's spring again.
To be honest, it's supposed to be like a coming of age story, but I don't know, other than like humans are evil, is there a point to this movie?
I don't know. That's the problem. I think it's just, here's Bambi and his life. Because that's what the book was too. Here's Bambi's life. And there's a hunter involved. And the hunter comes back at the end.
I'm for the kind of environmentalist conservationist message that I think is trying to be said in this. But at the same time, I do live in an area where deer are overly prevalent because we have taken away all of their natural predators. There are really no natural predators anymore for the white-tailed deer population, which is huge where I live. And basically the only thing that keeps the deer population down where I live is the yearly hunting season.
Mm.
And so while I absolutely adore deer in the sense that they are super cute and wonderful, they are also absolutely terrifying and to be respected, as in, they can absolutely mess you up. They are not passive creatures. They are a prey species that can absolutely wreck you in several senses of that word. I'm for like ethically making sure that we're dealing with hunting and stuff. That's my personal thing. I want to make sure that if you do it, we're keeping tabs on the population and making sure that they have access to food and that they're not overgrowing their ability to have food and have enough land, and that we're not either letting the population grow too large or get too small. I'm for conservation in that sense. But I don't necessarily think that hunting is wrong so long as you use everything you take, kind of thing. And so I think that just being like, no, someone hunted a deer is kind of too simplistic, which is kind of why I like the circle of life idea in Lion King a little better. The lion hunts this, and then the lion dies and becomes the grass, and those animals eat the grass, and it's one big circle, which I think is a little easier for kids to understand, that it's not necessarily evil, but the that's just my take.
Yeah, I get it. Again, this is a different era. This was just, let's do this and put it in theaters kind of deal. I don't know. I think that this was just one. It is sticking not close to the book in terms of story, but close to the book in terms of vibe. In that it really is no, with the exception of the hunters and like this one male deer that is on screen for 5 seconds, there really is no conflict in the movie. And I can see why some people, especially, older fans like ourselves, may not get the same entertainment out of this movie as, let's say, a small child. But, for a small child, it's look at all the cute little animals playing with each other, and that's all they would need. But, because that's just what the story was. It was just, here is the story of Bambi from birth till adulthood. And I think this kind of story is done better later on with movies like The Jungle Book. In taking that these are the stories of this one character, there is some conflict in that story and there's a resolution. In this movie, there is no conflict, so there can be no resolution. It is just these are the regular life events of this one deer and his friends. So, it is what it is. I want to say this. I mentioned this to you off mic. When I was a kid and I saw this movie for the first time, I could have sworn Flower was a girl. Because if you see Flower the first time in that early part of the movie, Flower is drawn with girly eyelashes, for lack of a better term. Flower does not object to be called a flower, or specifically a pretty flower, and gets kind of shy and embarrassed when he is called that. So when I was a kid first seeing this movie, I thought Flower was a girl. And then you see the time jump, and all of a sudden, Flower has this very deep voice, and at the end has a kid of his own.
Yeah, I also thought that Flower was supposed to be a girl through the first part of the movie.
Also, the mannerisms that Flower has throughout his little childhood is very, I don't want to say femme-coded, but it definitely is more not necessarily the way Thumper would act or the way Bambi would act as they're being boys. But, listener, if you also thought Flower was a girl when you first saw the movie, drop us a line. But Flower does have one of the best lines regarding that in the winter scene, because Bambi and Thumper encounter Flower while he's hibernating, and he says, "We flowers sleep in the winter." It's like, you know what? You took that name and you owned it. This also was different to other Disney movies at the time, in that this was not a musical. Like Snow White had characters singing, Pinocchio, Dumbo, they all had characters singing. It was a musical. While there are songs in Bambi, they are not sung by any of the major characters. We get little birds and background woodland creatures singing songs, but the main cast does not. We get the opening song, Love is a Song. We get Little April Shower When It Rains. We get the spring song. This is the title of the song. Let's Sing a Gay Little Spring Song, which is when spring hits and all the birds are canoodling and singing, and then Friend Owl is getting tired of it because he hates when everyone gets Twitter-pated. And then we get the big love song of the movie between Bambi and Feline called Looking for Romance. It says a lot when Little April Shower is the one song that really ends up becoming known outside of this movie. And even then, I don't think it's going to be on anyone's greatest Disney songs of all time list.
If you had asked me to name any songs from this movie, I would have been like, there are songs in that movie?
Yeah, and there were supposed to be 2 more songs for this movie that were supposed to be sung by the characters. Thumper had a song called Thumpity Thump, which kind of explains why he thumps and just what rabbits do. And there was going to be a song called Twitter-pated, which was going to be sung by Bambi, which he talks about romance. Like, I learned it from an owl what this word means called Twitter-pated, and both songs were cut from the movie because it was decided that they did not want the main cast to sing any songs. But they were recorded and released on other compilations over the years. So, yeah. And I believe some of the demos ended up on like DVD and Blu-ray releases of Bambi. Would that have made the movie better? No.
Yeah, I doubt it.
Making this movie a musical where characters sing would not have added to the movie.
You know what would have added to the movie, though? plot.
Yeah, there really isn't one. It's like the movie starts and all of the animals are going, "Hey, the new prince has been born. The new prince has been born." And then there's Bambi, and then we see his father, the great prince. And then Bambi starts hanging around Thumper, and then he meets Feline, and then he meets Flower, and then it's winter, and then the deer all go off to hibernate or whatever, and then it's spring, and then they go into the meadow. Man is here, and yeah, all of that happens. It's the time skip that gets me. It's like, I mean, I don't know what they would have. I mean, granted, I do know what they would have done because they went back and did it 60 years later. But it's like, we're like 40 minutes into the movie. Bambi's mom dies. Bambi's dad takes him and says he's, follow him. He's going to raise his son. And then we crash to like a year later in spring. And then Bambi's a full-grown buck. And then the rest of the movie is Bambi, Thumper, and Flower end up hooking up with girls. And then man comes back and they have to survive the hunting season. And then the movie ends with Bambi and Feline having birth to two fawns. And then that's the movie. Like, there's not much happening here. It's for me, I saw this movie mostly as shorts on the Disney Channel. And I've mentioned it before, like, there used to be shows where they would show all the Disney shorts, and occasionally they would take a lot of the older Disney movies and just show a clip of that Disney movie as if it were a short. So I saw the winter scene between Bambi and Thumper, more times than I've seen the entire movie in full, just because it was airing as a short on the Disney Channel.
Yeah, I only ever saw this as a movie. I saw it a lot as a kid, but it was just, I saw it a lot as a kid, but it was never one of my favorites. It was just one that was on a lot. It is a pretty movie, but it is not an interesting movie, in my opinion.
You're not wrong. There's not a lot. There is nothing happening. There really isn't.
If you ask people what they remember about the movie, they say, I was traumatized by his mom dying. And then that's really it. Like they might remember a funny line from Thumper or Flower, but there's not really much else to remember. It's very beautiful. The animation is incredible, but the songs are forgettable. There really is no plot to speak of, and it's kind of boring. I'm sorry, it is.
It looks nice. I mean, you're right, it does look nice, and it really is. The animation is very smooth. The background looks great. Like, you can tell that the animation team has really stepped up their game in the years since they started doing Snow White. So all of their animation tricks are perfected here, and they're really making this look good. But, like, it's all sizzle, no steak. And I hate saying that, because this is considered a classic Disney movie, and you're right in that there is no plot here. It's just, here's a deer. There's no conflict. There's no resolution. The hunter doesn't even get his comeuppance. We never see the hunter. He shoots Bambi's mom. We see the hunter and more hunters come back at the end of the movie, shoot more animals off screen, and then nothing happens.
We do weirdly see the corpse of one of them drop. The quail that freaks out and goes, I can't take it anymore. And they're like, don't fly away, don't fly away. And she flies away and gets shot. Which actually I think is a little more traumatic than Bambi's mom, really.
Because we actually see the quail get shot and fall. We see Bambi get shot.
Yeah, which people don't really talk about enough.
Like, it's right at the end of the movie. Bambi is trying to get back to Feline. He makes a jump and he is shot in midair. And, like, there's no blood. I don't think they were allowed to show blood back then. But Bambi is straight up shot. And he is hurt badly.
And then his dad shows up and he's just like, yeah, shake it off, kid.
If it get killed, walk it off.
Yeah.
And you're right, that scene does not get talked about enough. Because all everyone wants to talk about is Bambi's mom getting shot. And I agree that the quail scene is a little bit more, because it's more graphic, because you're actually seeing the bird get shot and the bird drop. You don't see Bambi's mom getting shot. You don't see her at all after the gunshot. You don't see a body or anything.
Well, yeah, you don't actually see the quail, like, the impact. You see it from her friend's point of view. Because you see their reaction when the sound happens. You know, she flies off frame, and you stay with her two friends that have been like, no, just stay still, stay quiet, stay here in the grass. And she's like, no, he's getting closer. I can't take it anymore. I can't take it. And they're like, just don't fly away. Stay here with us. And she's like, no, I can't take it. I can't take it. And she flies away and she flies off screen. And then you hear a gunshot and you see the reaction of her friends. And I'm like, okay, we're going to stay with her friends, which is tragic enough. Like, knowing what happened. But no, the camera angle changes and you see her limp body fall into frame. And then you see, like, a bunch of other animals start to panic, and you see, like, another bird fly away, and then there's a gunshot, and the bird's feathers, like, fall on top of the corpse of the quail that has already died. I'm like, you know, for Bambi, this is pretty graphic all of a sudden.
There's your tonal shift right there.
I mean, it's not quite as horrific as the earlier tonal shift, but yeah, it's another one. I'm like, what in the world, you know?
And another thing that no one ever talks about this movie is Bambi almost kills a dude.
Yeah, that is true.
Like, after he and Feline have their Twitter-pated moment, and he's having his little fantasy hallucination of being in the clouds with her. And all of that is ruined because there's another deer that comes in. And, like, it's Bizarro Bambi. Because he looks just like Bambi, but they give him a darker shade and, like, evil anime eyes. And it's like they're going to fight over Feline. Like, he is pushing Bambi out of the way. He is forcing Feline to go with him. And Bambi says, nope, that's my girl. You stay away from her. The animation style completely changes for that one scene. We've talked about something similar when we talked about Three Caballeros. How they do the rooster fight between the two guys. How the two guys morph between humans and roosters having a fight. And it's almost the same way here, because the animation style completely changes. Like, it goes into complete shadow, and the two deer instantly buff up as they're charging to each other. It's like they took nature footage of deers fighting and drew it rotoscope style for this movie. Because that movement is fluid.
It is very well done. The weird thing about it is that the second that Bambi's like, okay, I gotta fight this dude, all of a sudden they draw him, like, really roided up. Like, Bambi gets swole suddenly.
It's like two bulls fighting almost. And that's why I say I think they just simply took nature footage and just rotoscoped it. And it's a completely different animation style to everything else in the movie. And then just Bambi just throws the other deer off a cliff. He lands in water. And I guess they have him kind of walk away as to not show that Bambi just killed a dude. But, like, if Disney wanted to go a little bit more, they would have probably had him just fall to his death.
Yeah, but the thing is that he didn't do anything to necessitate the fall to your death ending. He was just a rival for the girl's affection. Like, he didn't do anything super evil, you know?
Yeah. And it feels like it's a character that comes out of nowhere. Like, if they had introduced this deer earlier in the movie as a rival for Bambi, that would have been some conflict. Like, he meets Feline in the meadow the first time around, and then we see this other deer, this other male deer, who also is fighting for Feline's affections. And then we get the big confrontation at the end that would have done something, but because it just comes out of nowhere and everything, like the entire movie changes for that 2 or 3 minute fight scene. Again, it's beautifully animated, but just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. One thing that I kind of noticed while I was watching, and I don't know if anybody else will go with me on this, but when I was a kid and I was watching this, there was always something that happens with Thumper as a little kid that I always kind of felt weird about. And it was only watching it again as an adult that I was like, oh, I think I know what this is. Because there's the running joke of Thumper like saying stuff and everybody getting kind of annoyed with him. Like at the beginning, you know, Bambi is trying to walk and he's like, well, you're not very steady on your feet, are you? And he's not being mean. He's just saying it because it's true.
Because he's a kid. Kid doesn't have, I think that's what they're trying to do with Thumper. He's a kid. He doesn't really, he's saying it because it's true, but he hasn't had the, okay, you're not supposed to say stuff like that, even if it is true.
Okay, well, I think that's what they thought in the 40s. But when I was growing up as a kid, there was something about it that I was just like, this doesn't feel right. Okay, because it's not like Thumper's an only child. He's a rabbit. You don't get only children in rabbits. Okay? But what do all his brothers and sisters do? They laugh when Bambi falls down. And Thumper just goes, well, you're not very steady, are you? Try it again. And he teaches Bambi how to walk. Like, he's not making fun of Bambi. He's just noting, you're not very steady.
And then his mom kind of rips into him. What did your father tell you, Thumper? If you can't say something nice, don't say nothing at all.
Yeah. But it's okay for his brothers and sisters to laugh at Bambi when Bambi falls down. Because they're not saying anything. They're just laughing, right?
Yeah.
And every time Thumper says something, he doesn't say anything to be cruel. He just says something that's true. While his brothers and sisters are actually like mocking Bambi. Like there's the bit where the Bambi is trying to jump over the log. And Thumper like stops and says, this is how you jump over a log. And very patiently does what he can to show Bambi, this is how you jump over it. And then the other rabbits come over and they're like, yeah, just jump over it, jump over it, jump over it. And they're like mocking Bambi more than being helpful. But Thumper is the one that's like patient and all, but he just says the truth. But anytime he says the truth about his mom's like, remember what your dad told you? Some rhyming crap that reminds you people don't want to hear the truth. But like, never is Thumper like actually like cruel or mocking to Bambi. Like, Thumper's actually a really good friend to Bambi.
You're right in that Thumper teaches Bambi to walk. He teaches him how to talk.
Yeah.
And he teaches him how to skate on ice.
And he's never mean about it. I mean, like, once or twice he he laughs at the flower thing because it's legitimately funny. But like he also like goes along with it. Flower's like, "Hey, I like that name. I'm going to keep that name." And Thumper's like, "Cool. You're Flower now. All right. We're going to go with it." You know? But who's the one that's always getting chided for saying stuff? It's Thumper, you know? I realized as an adult, like, why that bothered me so much as a kid. Like, you're right that I think they thought that they were being like, well, that's how little kids are. There's always like the one weirdo in the family. But as an adult, I'm like, but isn't that just like the neurodivergent kid in the family? There's always
Sure.
like the one kid that's like, you know, they're just being honest. They're not being mean about it. They're just, you're wobbly on your feet. Let me show you how to not be wobbly. You don't know how to say the word bird right. Let me show you how to say the word bird right. Like, you know, there's no judgment behind it when Thumper says it. It's just, I'm being honest. And yet Thumper's the one that's always getting like corrected and chided and like, be nicer, you know?
I think it's also because he's the only boy. Because he's the gray rabbit, and all of his siblings are yellow rabbits. And we see later, the cute bunny girl that gets to him is also a yellow rabbit, and also his mother is a yellow rabbit.
I mean, maybe that could be too, you know? But I don't know. I think that's why. I think I figured out as an adult why that always bothered me as a kid. Because I was also that kid. Like I would just be like, here's the facts. I'm giving you like the truth as I see it. I'm not being mean about it, you know? It's just, and then like somebody would be like, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. And I'm like, well, I'm not sure it was nice, but it wasn't mean. It was just fact. Like, you know, it was neutral. Like, do I always have to say nice things? Can't I just say like the sky is blue? That's it's not nice, it's not mean, it's just fact, you know? Like
I also think it's because Thumper's very blunt in his speaking. It's not that he's saying anything mean, is that he's being very blunt about it. Which could add to your thought of neurodivergence, because, yeah.
yeah, that's what I meant. Like he wasn't being mean about anything, he was just stating fact. Like
There's there's a way you can say certain things to not be very blunt, and I think that's the problem, at least from my understanding of the scene, is that he didn't say anything wrong, he just said it in a very blunt way.
yeah, that's and I didn't see a problem with that. I was watching, I was like, man, I forgot how much I love Thumper. This kid is awesome. More kids like this, thanks. And then
Although,
his mom was like a total witch about it. I was like, less characters like this mom.
one more thing I'll say in terms of the movie is, I had forgotten about this ending part, is you see Flower as an adult running up to Friend Owl at the end of the movie saying, "It happened, it's happened, it happened. Come on, Bambi, you're falling behind. Coming, Papa." And I thought it was so cute that Flower named his son Bambi.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can name a skunk Thumper, but the fact that he named his son Bambi, I think that's really cute.
I always thought it was weird when I was a kid that Bambi was a boy because I always thought of Bambi as a girl's name. You were talking about thinking, you know, Flower was a girl because the way that he was drawn. And I always had trouble remembering that Bambi was supposed to be a boy because like Bambi is a girl's name in my brain.
In modern pulp culture, yeah, Bambi is usually the name of a woman. I'm trying to be kind here.
Yeah. And I think we all have like a stereotype in our brain when we hear that, divorced from the Disney context, you know.
But yeah, and then at the end of the movie, the two twin fawns are born, and the circle of life begins again. And at the end, we see Bambi and his father, now both great princes of the forest.
I will say that it is kind of a funny thing that, you know, we talk about like this being possibly being able to be read as an anti-hunting movie, you know. I don't think that's out of line. But it is kind of funny that a bunch of hunters have tried to figure out like how many points Bambi's dad would be worth. Because they're talking about how he's like the oldest buck in the forest and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And he does have an amazing rack on him. And yes, I know how that sounds, but, you know, hunting terminology. And so I decided to do some research, and people have actually figured out or tried to figure out how many points they think Bambi's dad would be. And by the B and C scale, he'd be at least 150 point buck, which is a massive trophy buck.
The fact that the Great Prince has been able to avoid being hunted for that long is is amazing in its own right.
I'm gonna say Bambi's dad is probably why those hunters have set up camp in that spot. He's probably become a legend over the years when hunters are out there and they're like, you would not believe the deer I have seen walking around there. Like, I'm gonna go out there and I'm going to bag me that trophy buck, you know? Like,
I do find it interesting that he is referred to as the Great Prince and not the King.
yeah, that I do find interesting as well.
And apparently this is from the book, as apparently all male deer in their forest are referred to as princes. He is just called the Great Prince because he is the oldest. But they never explain that in the movie. It's just, here is little Prince Bambi, and his father is the Great Prince. There's no king of the forest.
I wonder that if it is because he's the prince of, like, the prey animals. Because we don't see any predator animals in this film. It is solely focused on prey animals.
Well, they do also kind of put him as a protector. So that's probably his role, as he protects the prey animals. Because, like, in the meadow, he's there kind of running everybody off to make sure the hunters don't get to them. So I think that's just his role in the forest, is to protect the prey animals. And now that Bambi has become of age, that is now his responsibility as well.
Well, I'm going to correct myself. We do see friend owl. And owls are a predatory species. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the only predatory species we see.
So, yeah, as I've mentioned, we would get Bambi 2 in 2006, 60 plus years after this movie came out, because Disney direct-to-video sequels, that's what they did. And that movie is about Bambi being raised by his father. Maybe we'll come to that one day. I don't know. And yeah, I have to mention it. This year, Bambi fell into the public domain, and we have a horror movie called Bambi the Reckoning, because that's what they do with children's stories that fall into the public domain these days. And I hate it because that's so unoriginal. Have you seen Bambi the Reckoning?
No, I have not.
Neither have I, and I don't want to. But with Bambi being in the public domain, I was hoping that someone could take this and maybe do a live-action movie. You know, maybe not live-action in the Lion King live-action sense, but something. Or maybe another studio could do their own animated Bambi movie or something. But no, we get a horror movie. But yeah, that's that. So that is our thoughts on Disney's Bambi. Kiki. Does Bambi have the magic?
I mean, visually, yes, but beyond that, it's kind of boring. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to anybody who likes it. I'm not gonna hate on anybody who loves this movie. It is a beautiful movie, but yeah.
It is beautifully animated, beautifully drawn. The even like when they get to the fire is beautifully animated. Everything in this movie is beautifully animated, and this team has took everything that they've learned from Snow White forward and put it all into this movie, and it looks beautiful and it looks awesome. But yeah, there are parts of this movie that, for a movie that is barely over an hour, it drags so much. Like I said, I like parts of these movies. I could take part of this movie, cut it up into a short, and enjoy it in that regard, that scene. As the full movie, nothing really happens. Like Kiki said, there's really no plot to this movie. So, I'm going to also say no magic, and I feel really bad about it. And it says a lot about this movie that the only character of this movie you will ever see in the parks is the girl bunny. And she's only on screen for like a minute. And they bring her out for Easter. So yeah, that's who they use as the Easter bunny.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
As for next week, we are going to be talking about a movie that is a comedy classic and a movie that we have wanted to talk about for a while. My Cousin Vinny. I will say that right now, this is an R-rated movie, so next week will probably be an R-rated conversation, so next week will not be for the little ones, unfortunately. But we will be coming back the following week with a very good, kid-friendly movie after that. So yeah, all of that next week. My Cousin Vinny next week, and we will talk to you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Don't let the magic stop here.
Keep the conversation going. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Rewatching the Magic.
We are also on Blue Sky, rewatchingthemagic.bsky.social. And new episodes are available at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com and youtube.com/@rewatchingthemagic. Remember, the magic is for everyone.
It only stops if you let it.
We know that right now, things are tough.
But in the words of Jim Henson, the only way the magic works is by hard work. But hard work can be fun.
Check out our show notes for ways that you can help.